Let me take you on a journey, not through the clean, polished streets of the London you know today, but through a city built on layers of smoke and struggle, fire and rebirth, mud and destiny. Because the truth is, London isn't just a place on a map, it's a survivor. And the story buried under its pavements is stranger, older, and more dramatic than most people ever realize. Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of Trafalgar Square, surrounded by the roar of buses, the glow of screens, the endless footsteps of millions. But beneath your shoes, deeper than the underground trains, deeper than the forgotten tunnels, lie the bones of mammoths, tools chipped by ancient hunters, and the quiet ghost of a riverbank where humans stood long before the word London existed. This city was alive before there were kings, before Romans dreamed of empire, before anyone thought to write down history. And yet, very few people know that London's story starts thousands of years earlier than the textbooks usually admit. Stay with me because the deeper we go, the stranger, and more beautiful, the truth becomes. And if you love uncovering hidden stories like this, you might want to subscribe so you can join me whenever we dive into another forgotten corner of the ancient world. Now, let's step forward in time. 2,000 years. To a moment when the quiet mudflats beside the Thames suddenly shake with the thunder of Roman boots. This is Londinium, a name whispered with the confidence of empire. The Romans didn't come here out of curiosity. They came for control, for trade, for domination. And in the ashes of their conquest, they built a bridge across the Thames, roads fanning out like the ribs of a great beast, and a bustling port city that would become one of the most important hubs in ancient Britain. But here's the twist. Londinium was not born peaceful. At its very birth, it was almost destroyed. In the year 60 AD, the warrior Queen Boudica rose like a storm. Her fury burned through Roman settlements, and when she reached London, she did not hesitate. The young city was emptied, set ablaze, and reduced to charred rubble. Imagine standing in that inferno, the heat, the screams, the crackling collapse of every wooden beam the Romans had just built. For most cities, that would have been the end. But not London. The Romans rebuilt, stronger, prouder, with stone walls thick enough to defy the world. That spirit, the spirit of burning, breaking, and rising again, would become London's destiny. And that's why, my friend, London is not just old. It's eternal. If you're enjoying the ride so far, make sure you stay with me. This story only grows more dramatic from here. When the Roman Empire eventually crumbled, it was as if the lights went out across Britain. Londinium was abandoned, eerily quiet, its fields overgrown, its buildings collapsing into silence. For a moment, London was a ghost city, but only a moment. Because soon, new settlers arrived. Saxons who built small communities along the river at a place called Londonwick. Their London was not grand. No marble forums. No stone temples. Just wooden huts, smoke rising from simple fires, and the daily rhythm of survival. Yet even here, greatness simmered. By the 9th century, Vikings began sweeping down the Thames, their longships slicing through the water like dragons. The Saxons fled again and again, fire following in the footsteps of the invaders. It was chaos, and yet in the midst of this chaos, Saxon kings began to strengthen their grip, pushing the city back inside the old Roman walls. Slowly, London became a center of trade, power, and opportunity once more. And that's the odd truth about this city. The more it is attacked, the more it seems determined to grow. If you love this kind of story, history that's raw, dramatic, human, I'd love to have you as part of our journey. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next mystery we dig up. Now let's step into the medieval world, the London of kings, knights, and shadows. By the time William the Conqueror crossed the Channel in 1066 and claimed the English crown, London was already powerful enough to command his attention. And William, wise as he was ruthless, understood something important. If you want to rule England, you must hold London. So he planted a message of stone on the Thames, the Tower of London. A fortress, a warning, a symbol that whispered, "The Normans are here, and they are not leaving." As centuries passed, medieval London swelled with merchants, craftsmen, sailors, and dreamers. Narrow streets twisted between timber houses leaning so close they nearly kissed. Markets overflowed with everything from silk to spices to animals no one in Europe had ever seen before. But beneath this bustling life, medieval London had a darker side: filth, disease, and desperation. Imagine walking through these streets. Open sewers. Butchers throwing guts into the gutters. People packed so tightly together that disease spread like wildfire. And wildfire itself was a constant threat, the smell of smoke never far from anyone's mind. Yet somehow, London thrived. Wealth poured in. Cathedrals rose. Westminster transformed from a quiet riverside church into the beating political heart of England. And just when London seemed unstoppable, tragedy struck. In 1348, the Black Death arrived. It crept in silently, carried by fleas, hidden in bundles of cloth, riding on ships gliding up the Thames. And within months, the city was dying. Entire parishes wiped out. Bells tolling endlessly. Bodies carted through the streets. At its peak, some believed the world was ending. But again, London survived. It always survived. And as the centuries turned, it changed again. The Tudors rose to power. London became the center of a growing empire. Shakespeare walked its streets, performing for crowds who cheered and wept as the Globe Theatre filled with life. Still, danger was never far away. In 1665, plague returned. This time it claimed almost 100,000 lives, a quarter of the city. The fear was suffocating. People painted red crosses on doors, signaling death within. Doctors wore bird-like masks filled with herbs. The streets emptied. Silence returned, the same silence from those ancient days after Rome collapsed. And then, as if plague was not enough, the Great Fire came. September 1666. A spark in a bakery on Pudding Lane became a roaring inferno that consumed nearly everything. London burned for 4 days. Imagine watching flames taller than cathedrals, hotter than anything you'd ever felt, swallowing homes, churches, markets, tearing through the heart of the city. More than 13,000 buildings vanished into ash. But the fire, in its terrible way, cleared out centuries of crowded wood and corruption. And in its ruins, London found a chance to remake itself. A new city rose. Wider streets. Brick and stone instead of timber. And above it all, like a crown, the new St. Paul's Cathedral, designed by Christopher Wren, a dome so magnificent it seemed to float between heaven and earth. And just as always, as soon as London stood tall again, the world changed once more. Let's leap forward to the 19th century. The era of steam. The Industrial Revolution. London became the largest city on Earth, a monstrous, magnificent machine of humanity. Millions poured in from across Britain and beyond, chasing work, chasing hope. But with growth came suffering, overcrowded slums, toxic air, cholera outbreaks from polluted water. Charles Dickens wrote about these streets, the hunger, the grime, the heartbreak, not as fiction, but as reality. And yet, again, London adapted. Engineers built sewers the size of cathedrals underground. Railways connected people like never before. Bridges stretched across the Thames, steady as the spine of the city. The skyline rose. And then came the darkest nights London had ever known. World War II. The Blitz. Night after night, bombs rained down. The sky glowed red. Whole neighborhoods vanished. Children were evacuated. Firefighters fought impossible battles against falling fire. And through it all, the people stayed strong. They sheltered in underground stations, singing songs to drown out the rumble of destruction. And when the sun returned, London stood, scarred but unbroken. In the decades that followed, London didn't just rebuild, it reinvented itself again. The old docks became new business districts. Skyscrapers pierced the horizon. Cultures from every corner of the world shaped its streets, food, music, and soul. A city once built by Romans now speaks hundreds of languages. A city once lit by torches now glows with millions of lights. And somehow, despite all this change, one thing remains constant. London never stops transforming. That is the real magic of this city. Not the landmarks or the museums or the palaces, but the heartbeat, the one that kept going through fire, plague, invasion, bombs, and time itself. London is a story that refuses to end. A city that refuses to die. A place that carries every century layered beneath the next, like pages in a book that nobody can put down. If you felt that, if you've sensed the pulse of history behind this journey, go ahead and join us by subscribing. There are so many more ancient mysteries waiting for us, and I'd love to have you with me every time we open another chapter of the world's hidden past. For now, I'll leave you with this final thought. Next time you walk through London, or see it on a screen, remember that beneath every step lies a forgotten world. Roman fire, Saxon hope, Viking fear, medieval dreams, Tudor ambition, Victorian struggle, wartime courage. All of it living together, breathing together, in the same space and time. London is not just a city. It is a memory that never fades. And one day, when future generations dig beneath what we leave behind, they'll find traces of us too, just another layer in the endless story. Until then, stay curious, stay wondering, and I'll meet you in the next journey through time.